Could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to Sunday Night Football overtime. Colts, Chiefs. Wow, wasn't expecting that. Now, I must say, I've looked at this Colts team since the Andrew Luck retirement, and I said, do not discount this Colts team. Jacoby Brissett is good enough to start in this league. I've said this for quite some time, and I think I even said that before Andrew Luck retired. Now, I doubled down on Jacoby Brissett. What I did not double down on was this Colts defense. And I remember having this very same conversation with Colts fans before the season started. As a matter of fact, it was around draft time. I was not the biggest fan, but I said this as well. I wasn't the biggest fan of the draft defensively, the Kari Willises of the world, and the linebacker Ben Banagoo, and some of these guys that they took, the EJ Speeds of the world. And me and Colts fans had a running dialogue back and forth about this defense and how these players specifically fit roles and niches that they were going to carve out for themselves, because there was a vision that was had when these players were selected. And I said this, I said, look, I don't agree with the selections, and you can tell me that Chris Ballard has a specific role in mind for each of these players, and these guys are going to pan out. And that's what Colts fans explained to me. And I bought that. I said, hey, I understand where you're coming from. I'm just telling you what I saw on tape. I don't love these guys. They said, don't worry. We trust Chris Ballard. And I said, you know what? I don't love these players, but you're right. I do trust Chris Ballard. And I said, if there's one thing that I will do, and I don't do this very often, is I will follow Chris Ballard, the GM of the Indianapolis Colts, blindly. Why? Because I believe in what this guy's done since he's come in and revamped this Colts organization. They went from one of the laughing stocks of the league to quickly a respectable ball club that you have to worry about in the AFC. And that was with Andrew Luck. Without Andrew Luck, everyone dismissed them, said that they weren't going to be good enough. And voila, here we are 5 weeks into the season, and they're on the road in Kansas City. No one gave them a chance in hell. I know I didn't. I'm not going to sit here and act as if I thought they were going to win this game, because I thought this was a foregone conclusion that they would get a mud hole stomped in their ass. Now, let me go on the opposite side of this thing and talk about the Chiefs quickly. I said last week, if you remember, this is not the same Chiefs team that was steamrolling teams and scoring damn near 40 every week, similar to the Rams last year. You know, it's funny that those two teams, albeit both of them still look like playoff teams and look like they're going to be very good. The Rams, not as much as the Chiefs, but still, you look at both of those teams, their offenses are not as dynamic as they were last year. Now, maybe the league has caught up to them somewhat, or maybe it's just hard to duplicate what they did. And I think we just got accustomed to those teams going out and scoring a bunch of points, having it on tilt, and expecting that week in, week out. It's hard to do what those teams did last year, week in and week out. And I think we just took it for granted. Oh, that's the Rams being the Rams. Oh, that's the Chiefs being the Chiefs. Oh, that's Patrick Mahomes doing what Patrick Mahomes does. And he did it again tonight. At times, that touchdown to Pringle. Are you serious right now, or are you joking with me? I mean, that is ridiculous what he was able to do on that particular play for the touchdown. But we've gotten so accustomed to that. And I used to have to always remind people about how good Peyton Manning and Tom Brady were, or in the case of Tom Brady still is, but Peyton Manning, how good he was, and said, look, don't take this for granted and just say, oh, that's Peyton Manning being Peyton Manning. Like, bask in this greatness, because you may never see this again. And I think we got to the point where we started taking the Chiefs' dynamic offensive ability, and the Rams, same thing, kind of for granted, like, oh yeah, that's what they do. And now when they're not doing it, you're kind of shocked. You're surprised. And you got to give some credit to the Colts defensively. Like, they're just better. All right? Like, I watched the Chiefs last week, and I'm like, that wasn't the kind of performance I'm used to seeing from them, but they found a way to beat Detroit on the road. You just assumed they were going to go into Detroit and win, and they did, but it wasn't in the fashion you thought. They literally got away by the skin of their teeth. Do you even have skin on your teeth? What does that even mean? I don't know. But I know they barely made it out of that damn dome with a victory last week in Detroit. And so you thought they would bounce back, come home. Indy coming off of a tough loss. You just thought they would be able to take care of business here. and the Colts had other ideas. I don't think people realize how good Jacoby Brissett had been playing, but even more so, how good this Colts defense can be. Again, last week against the Raiders, they showed some things last week that made you think, they're all right, but they're not the kind of team that's going to be capable of going on the road and beating Kansas City. Not losing at home to the Raiders. Maybe the Raiders are better than everyone thinks. They go to over to London and they beat the Bears. And so it's wacky. You're still figuring things out these first 5 weeks of the season. One thing I feel pretty confident saying at this point, and you get into that point of the season where you should be able to make some declarations about teams, who's good, who's for real, who's still pretending, that sort of thing. And I think in the AFC, you can go ahead and say that the Raiders, they're good enough to go at least 8-8. All right, at least 8-8. They're good enough to potentially go 10-6 and compete for a playoff spot. And I think you could go ahead and make the same claim for this Indianapolis Colts football team. They showed you tonight that they can win ugly like they did against the Titans earlier in the season. That's family business, though. You expect that kind of performance. So I kind of threw that one to the side. And I expected them to go in there because in the last 16 meetings against Tennessee, they're 14-2. I expected them to find a way to go into Tennessee and win. What I didn't expect was them to lose at home to Oakland last week. I definitely didn't expect them to bounce back and win on the road at Kansas City on a Sunday night, no less. This was really impressive. And you know what? Probably the most impressive part of tonight's victory was, the defense and the way that we're able to contain this Chiefs high-octane offense. And, with the Chiefs, it's just amazing how insert next player, big game, doesn't matter who it is, they find a way to still get production out of guys. Well, what was impressive about the Colts, the defense and their ability to hold this ridiculously good Chiefs offense to 13 points. But you know what was just as impressive is the way they ran the damn football. And I get it. It's the Chiefs defense. And I've said, look, the Chiefs are much improved on defense. But again, they were so bad last year. What am I really saying? I still think they've got a ways to go on defense, but they're better. All right. However, the fact that they turned around and handed it to Marlon Mack damn near 30 times tonight, and he rushed for well over 100 yards, speaks volumes as to where this team is and how comfortable they feel running the football. That offensive line is built to run the football. All right, they got some road graders up front, including a guy that I love. He's a Golden Domer, all right, in Quentin Nelson. And you look at the way they built that offensive line, they can run the football, they can move people, they can create a new line of scrimmage. They did it tonight. Marlon Mack looked exceptional. And the way that they were able to control the pace of this game. I mean, there were some drives that were 7 and 8 minutes long. And you look up, damn, the whole third quarter's gone. Why? Because they just ate up the vast majority of the quarter, running the football, matriculating it down the field, and moving the sticks. And that's kind of how you're going to have to do it with the Chiefs sometimes if you're looking to beat the Chiefs. Is you're going to have to keep the football away from them. And then they did an exceptional job on the defensive side of not only getting after Mahomes, and it helped that he was hampered by an injury after he got hit on one of those plays, but it was even before then. He was not having the kind of night he's accustomed to having. They were getting after him in the first half. They had limited the rushing attack in the first half. They forced Patrick Mahomes in that passing offense to have to beat them, and normally that's a death sentence. They could not run it and still get you for over 400 yards of total offense and 33 points. And you say to yourself, well, damn, we got them where we wanted them, and they still beat us. But the Colts not only were able to make it a one-sided affair in terms of them not being able to run the football and having to rely on Patrick Mahomes, but they were also able to keep them in some long third down and distance situations. The penalties really hurt the Chiefs in this game. They really had some penalties that really killed them. But again, the big stop late in the game by Justin Houston, he was phenomenal in his return to Kansas City. But watching them fly around, Kamoko Toure is a guy that I talked about out of Rutgers in his second year, really making an impact on this defense. They fly around for Matt Eberflus, and you're seeing a continuation of what we saw from this defense last year. Remember, in the playoffs, they went to Houston and pretty much pitched a shutout, and we were so impressed with Matt Eberflus in this defense. This is a group that has some talent, They're young, they're dumb, they're hungry. This is a team you got to look out for in the AFC. I'm not saying they're ready to win anything of note, but they are going to compete in that division for the AFC South crown. And they're one of those teams you do not want to mess around with come December, come January, because they're not afraid. All right. I love Frank Wright. I think he's the perfect head coach for that team. You saw it tonight. He's not afraid to roll the dice, but he also understands. And we saw that last year, in some situations where we second guessed him against Houston at home when you say, hey, bro, what are you doing? You got to go for the tie there. You're not going to win the football game. And he's like, I'm not here for a tie. I'm here for the win. Like, I just think that it's a perfect combination of what they got going on between GM, head coach, and the players that they've brought in. And you're seeing it kind of manifest itself out on the field. Tonight was a great example. No one gave them a shot. Now, they've got to be more consistent. That's one of my biggest issues with the and they're still trying to figure some things out post Andrew Luck. But I think they know that they've got a guy in Jacoby Brissett, which is why they extended him with the deal that they gave him a couple of weeks ago. And now he's going to be around at least for the next 3 to 4 seasons. They feel good about Jacoby Brissett, as they should. I love Marlon Mack. Always have, always will. Think he's a really good back. He's just got to stay healthy. Nyheim Hines did some good things out of the backfield tonight, catching the football. We know what he's capable of when they get it to him in the pass game. And then when you look at the skill positions, they're a different offense when T.Y. Hilton is healthy. He wasn't last week. That was another reason why they weren't able to get it done versus the Raiders. And I don't want to make any excuses for them. But when you have all your pieces, and they're going to be without a guy that I thought was going to make a major impact for them on that one-year deal coming from Carolina and Devin Funchess. He's going to be out for a while. But when you look at this Colts offense, they've got enough pieces on this football team to get the job done. And then the thing that I'm starting to come around to is that this defense is legit. It's not going to be a top 10 defense most likely, but they're going to be one of those defenses that's going to keep them in ball games and give them a shot week in, week out. And this was really impressive to see Justin Houston and all of these guys make plays. How about the strip by Odom on the screen? They were going in for points. That was another impressive thing, is that this defense bent, but it never really broke. I mean, the one touchdown that the Chiefs scored tonight came on a damn Patrick Mahomes magic type of play where he's dancing around, running backwards, and then all of a sudden Pringles shakes free and he throws a ridiculous rope into the end zone. You take that away and you look at all the turnovers and the opportunities they created for themselves defensively. They damn near pitched a shutout on the road on a Sunday night in Kansas City. We did not see this coming. What an impressive performance by the Indianapolis Colts. This is one of the biggest upsets of the day. I mean, and this is a day full of upsets, full of impressive performances by teams that we didn't expect. But I think this one supersedes any other upset that we didn't see coming in week number 5. This was a big win for the Colts, and it keeps them atop the division in the AFC South, which is just ridiculous right now with the Texans being 3-2. Now the Colts are 3-2. The Jags are right there. They're 2-3 now, I believe. No, they're 3-2 as well, I believe. I'm trying to think. They had won. I think they had won 2 in a row, 3 in a row. I think. I'm trying to think they won 2 in a row. I know with Minshew. I think they were 3-1 coming into the game. The only loss was to these Chiefs. No, they lost to the Texans too. So they're 2-3, but they're a damn good 2-3 team. All right, and then you've got the Tennessee Titans, who you really don't know what the hell they're gonna do week in, week out. You don't know what Titans team is gonna show up, but they're 2-3 as well. So it's a really competitive division. They're atop the division along with the Texans. That's gonna be a fun division to watch unfold as this season continues to progress. Especially if the Colts can sort of bottle up what they did tonight, especially from a defensive standpoint, and kind of use this moving forward. That's going to be fun to watch. Meanwhile, for the Chiefs, I'm you know what? I'm actually not surprised at the way that they were able to see the offense be geared down. They've got a ton of injuries, and they even sustained a bunch more on the defensive side tonight. So I'm not shocked that they got bogged down tonight from an offensive standpoint, I still thought they would be able to do enough to win the football game. When I look at this Chiefs football team and look at what happened tonight, um, you can run the football on them. You can throw the football on the Chiefs, but they've done a much better job of finding ways to create turnovers and create ways for them to do enough to win. And last year, they had to just simply outscore you. You were going to score 31, but they were going to score 37. All right, last year they were going to score 43. You might score 37, but they were going to score 43. They don't have to score 37 to win every week this season. All right. What they're going to still have to do, though, is score 31 a lot of times. Tonight, they wouldn't have had to score that. Obviously, you look at the score and you see that they wouldn't have needed to do that. But they just seemed a little out of sync. You know, Kelsey with some drops on passes that he normally would catch. You had Shady McCoy with the fumble. Mahomes getting hit. I thought he got hit a ton tonight. And as they talked about at the top of the telecast, he's only been sacked 3 times coming into this game, but he's been under duress because this offensive line has some injuries. And you're starting to see that really come to fruition. I've never been a Cameron Irving guy. I didn't even like him at center, let alone at left tackle. And that was a problem tonight. You know, Justin Houston had his way out there. And this is an offensive line. Wiley went down at one point tonight. You're just dealing with a bunch of injuries along that offensive line. And when you look at the way this team is constructed, they really need to be able to run the football to take pressure off of Mahomes. As good as Mahomes is, this is a team that should be able to turn around and hand it off. And they were able to do that earlier in the season. They were able to do it last year with Damian Williams. They haven't really been able to do that consistently this season with the injuries. Damian Williams came back tonight, but Shady McCoy had been dealing with some injuries as well. And you look at the rush totals tonight, they didn't run the football very effectively tonight. And so that put a lot of the onus on Patrick Mahomes. They've got injuries, obviously, at the receiver position. They're still waiting for Tyreek Hill to come back. And I know what Demarcus Robinson was doing was ridiculous, and he was on this ridiculous torrid pace. But you knew he wasn't going to continue to do that. And so you needed guys like Kelsey and guys like Samuel Watkins to step up. He got injured again, and that's always been his problem throughout his career. You know the guy's talented. We saw it in week 1 versus Jacksonville, but he's not going to stay healthy, and he left this game with a hamstring injury. And so you're going to have other guys step up, and it's just tough when you're continuing to ask the Pringles of the world to step up for you. Every single week you need it to be somebody different. And instead of having core guys you can rely on, Mecole Hardman is a rookie, and you're asking a lot of him early on in his young NFL career. Eventually, it's going to take its toll, and it's going to catch up with you. It did tonight. Then you add into the fact that Mahomes was limping around out on the football field. And again, you couldn't run it tonight, and that was evident by your 4th and 1 stop that the Colts were able to get against you, where you just simply couldn't run the football tonight. And so you look at all those things, then you look at the defense and them just not being able to stop the run consistently tonight. I think that was the undoing there, because you really didn't give it up. You had a ton of penalties, as I talked about, on both sides of the football. Bashaud Breeland was guilty of numerous infractions tonight, had the biggest penalty yardage-wise in the NFL of this entire season with that 50, I think it was a 51-yarder, 53, one of the two, on that pass interference early in the game. He got called for holding a couple of times. You had a slew of injuries. My God, I think Hitchens left the game. Chris Jones left the game. At one point, Frank Clark was dealing with an injury. You had the Xavier Williams guy go down. I mean, you had injury after injury after injury after injury. And yet, you hung in there, got the interception by the Honey Badger. You hung tough in this football game. And I just kept waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for you guys to just explode in one of these quarters, go off for 20 points, and all of a sudden we say, okay, there it is. This was cute by the Colts. They hung tough, but they're not going to win on the road. You know, and I expected you to go off for like 17 in one of these quarters in the second half and win this game going away, something like, 29-13, 29-16, something like that. And it just never happened. Again, credit the Colts for that. But at some point, you're going to have to be able to one, get healthy, but at some point too, you're gonna have to achieve a little bit more balance on the offensive side of the football. I think that's what this game kind of said to me. Got to eliminate the mistakes. Mahomes is ridiculous, but at some point you have to alleviate some of that pressure off of him. I get it. He's the MVP. He's outstanding, and we feel like this guy can shoulder the burden. But at some point, you got to be able to take some of the pressure. I mean, that guy did everything in his power. Despite not throwing a touchdown pass last week, he did everything in his power to will you to a victory last week, and he was able to do so. But you still needed a 100-yard fumble return by Bashaud Breeland to change that game and to give you an opportunity to win that football game. You're going to have to be able to run the football, achieve a little bit more balance on the offense. And then you need some big plays, too. That's something that you've done throughout the course of this season. Big plays. You weren't able to get that tonight. You weren't able to get the big 47-yard chunk, all right? You weren't able to manufacture that. You've been doing that all year long. The Raiders game, obviously, with the 28 points in that one quarter. Mahomes going for damn near 300 yards passing. DeMarcus Robinson going nuts in that second quarter. Big plays in that game. Big plays in that Lions game last week. There was big plays against Jacksonville in week 1. Big plays have been your calling card this season. You didn't get them in this game. You had big plays versus the Ravens. You didn't have big plays tonight. And so that's something else that you've relied on very heavily in this young season. You didn't get any big plays. You had to actually drive the length of the field, and then you had penalties. That's something to consider. If you're not running it, you're not getting big plays. Can you sustain offense consistently with all the injuries? Tonight you weren't able to do that. That's something that I'm going to be looking at moving forward. If you don't get big plays in the passing game, if you're not getting a screen that pops for 65, or DeMarcus Robinson getting behind the defense, or Mecole Hardman getting behind the defense, and big plays will come back once Tyreek Hill comes back. All right, but right now, if you're not getting big plays and you're not running the football, are you able to sustain offense? And weren't able to do that tonight. Had some mistakes, some turnovers, and it just wasn't your night. And no one expected you to be undefeated this year. I just didn't expect you to lose at home to the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday Night Football. That's the thing. So that's a little different from last year, but this is different. This is this year. It's not last year. And I think that's what we have to remember as we watch these teams, Rams, Chiefs. Even the Patriots don't look right. I mean, they're 5-0, but the Patriots could easily be 3-2 right now. All right? The Patriots easily could have lost 2 games this season. So when you look at these teams, they're not as sharp as they were last year. There isn't, to me, any clear teams that are head and shoulders above everyone else in the league this year. I just haven't seen it. So it's pretty interesting watching these teams play. I think there are some chinks in everyone's armor this year. There isn't a team that, to me, is head and shoulders above the rest. And so now there were only 2 undefeated teams left in the league, in the Patriots, and who is the other undefeated team? The 49ers are the only other undefeated team now. And we're going to see if they can stay undefeated on Monday Night Football. But in any event, felt like I've been talking for way too long. Let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. That's crazy. Enrique Valencia says, can't believe we beat KC without having a QB. What is this not having a QB talk you speak of? I think you were one of the people that thought Jacoby Brissett wasn't going to be able to get the job done. You've been so wrong. If you were the one, I'm not going to put that on you, but I believe in listening to that comment and reading it, you still believe that Jacoby Brissett isn't good enough to get the job done, which I vehemently disagree with. Outside of that one mistake, he kept you in the game in that first half, and y'all were able to run the football very effectively. He did what he needed to do to give you a chance to win this football game. I got Munson says, Collinsworth nailed it with Mack and the Le'Veon Bell comparison. What patience behind that dominant line. There was one particular run that got me to thinking about that Le'Veon Bell thing. Because it's funny, Marlon Mack in college looked similar to Le'Veon Bell, but I didn't see that in his rookie season. I saw a guy that was a little bit more decisive and a guy that was sticking his foot in the ground and just getting up the field. This year, he's kind of gotten really comfortable. I think he's gotten so comfortable that he's back to that South Florida type of football where at any moment a big play could happen and he's being really patient. And it was one play in there. I think you guys all know the play I'm talking about. It was in the first half where he's behind that offensive line and he's kind of dancing, patient. And then he was able to stick his foot in the ground and go much faster than slow. And I was like, whoa, that was really impressive. That was really Le'Veon Bell-like. And then that's when Collinsworth kind of came with that Le'Veon Bell comparison, and he looked the part of an L. Bell tonight. Enrique Valencia says you need to give Jacoby the captain check down title from Alex Smith. I don't see that with him as much as you do. And maybe you've been watching him a little bit more intently than I have, and you feel like he's just checking it down. I've seen him make some really tight window throws down the field. I've seen him let it rip a couple of times. I know he can throw the football down the field, and I know he's willing to take some shots. Right now, I think what they've told him, and I can't confirm nor deny this, but I'm pretty sure they told him, look, Jacoby, we don't need you to be Andrew Luck. We don't want you to come in here and try to be something you're not. Take care of the football. Keep us ahead of the schedule. Keep us in manageable third down situations. Keep matriculating the football down the field, moving the sticks, and we'll do the rest. You don't have to play outside of yourself. Play within the scheme. Keep us in ball games, and we'll be a good football team. And they've seen enough to extend this man already. I don't really agree with your assessment of Jacoby Brissett. Ed says, the Colts shocked me tonight. Most people picked the Chiefs, including me, but the Colts played a good game. I think that's the biggest takeaway, I guess, as fans of other teams is just, whoa, what just happened tonight? And I said that already. This has got to be the biggest upset of week number 5 right now. It was a hell of a performance by the Colts. We just didn't see this coming. Simply put, I don't think anybody really saw this game coming. I don't even think Colts fans expected a win here. They thought they might be competitive, but I don't think they thought they were going into Kansas City and winning this football game. Big Blue Rising says, good old-fashioned ground and pound football by the Colts. Agreed. Like I said, damn near 30 carries from Marlon Mack, and they got the football spread around to other guys as well. They ran the football right down the Chiefs' throat in this football game, and it's funny because we talk about the passing game and how points are scored through the passing game and how this league is changing, and you got to be able to throw the football to be effective. But if you can run the football in this league, and you know once it starts to get colder, and we're not there yet, but once the calendar turns to December into January, the teams that can run the football and play defense are usually the ones that survive and advance. And you're seeing this league. You can say all you want about the passing game, and you do need to be able to pass it, but you also need to be able to run it as well. It's not a coincidence that the San Francisco 49ers are 3-0 looking to stay perfect on the season at 4-0 because they can run the football. All right, Jimmy G hasn't been dynamic offensively throwing the football, but they run it like nobody's business, and they've been really good defensively. If you can run the football, you have a chance in this league. And the Colts showed you that again tonight. Good defense, run the football, you got a shot to win, even on the road against teams that may even be better than you. Enrique Valencia says, man, that O-line and Marlon Mack will keep us in every game. Fun seeing that after years of bad O-line play and bad running back play. I agree. You spent the draft picks and the draft capital on that offensive line. It's really good to see that your resources that you've spent are starting to create dividends for you. It's always fun when teams invest heavily into one position and that position really starts to they really start to see the fruits of their labor, so to speak. And that's what the Colts have done. Like he said, after years of being really porous along the offensive line, it's a shame that once Andrew Luck, had taken his beating, and it took him to really get his ass whooped to the point where he didn't feel like he could play anymore, that they finally got the offensive line in a position where they could, take some pressure off the quarterback position. And they're really good up front. Marlon Mack is really good at the running back position. And I also like Jordan Wilkins. I told you I liked him coming out of Ole Miss as well. So I actually like those two guys you got out of the backfield, man. And I remember years of Frank Gore and all of and Robert Turbin out of the backfield. Like, it was bad in Indy at the running back position for years. And now to see where you are now, I think you're in a really good spot, as Enrique said, with the offensive line and the running back position. Reese says, you have to give it up to the Colts organization. Andrew Luck retiring was a big blow. They could have laid down and died, but they refused to. Again, I believe in Chris Ballard as their GM. I believe in his view and his vision for this organization. I believe in what he's doing. And like I said, I think that Frank Wright is the perfect guy to deliver his message and coach up the players that he selects. They're just in a really good spot. This is a prime example of what a healthy organization looks like. Their owner may not be shit, but because you have a tremendous general manager and a really good head coach, it overcomes any shortcomings of your owner overall. And I think this is a great example of what having a strong, structured front office can do for you. And the Colts are exactly that. And I think you're starting to see why this team didn't fold after the news of Andrew Luck retiring, because most organizations wouldn't have been able to rebound from that. But they're a strong organization, and it starts at the top with Chris Ballard. And that's why you're seeing this team continue to fight week in and week out and have a chance in just about every single game. Reese says, Lou, you were right. You told me with BA's hiring was a sign of brighter days to come, but we still have a ways to go. You said he'll turn us around, but we still have a lot of work to do. I told you BA was going to come in, your offense was going to be credible, and he's going to give you an opportunity to win. Now, it's up to you guys to draft the right players and to be able to get the most out of them, especially on the defensive side. I don't know, and I still haven't watched the game from today. I'll be able to talk to you more about what I saw in the game tomorrow. And remember, I'm glad I just brought that up and you just brought this up. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., the debut of Rep Your Squad, where floor is open for you guys to chime in about your team. And 7 o'clock p.m., from 7 all the way to Monday Night Football is when this show will be every single week, the remainder of this season. So call in or use social media to rep your squad here on the Louie T Network. But I told you that BA was going to come in and this team was going to change. It's not a coincidence that BA leaves the Cardinals and they all of a sudden go to shit, okay? He is the guy, not Steve Keim, their GM, all right? But BA was the piece holding that whole thing in Arizona together, and that's they've struggled ever since he's left. So it's not a coincidence. Let's see. Reese says, Paris Campbell and T.Y. Hilton, best receiver duo name ever. Paris Hilton. I should leave it to you, right? Azad Bilal says, do you think the Colts make a wild card run in the AFC? Is the future bright in Indy? I'm not looking at wild card for them. I'm looking at the division crown for them. Like, what's stopping them from winning the AFC South? I mean, Houston is playing solid football, but we all know Houston has been really inconsistent. They scored 53 this week. Last week, they found it hard to score against Carolina. So you don't know what Panthers team is going to show up. You don't know what Titans team is going to show up. I think Jacksonville has been the most consistent team of any of them in the division, and they're 2-3. And in Indy, you don't really know if they're going to be consistent or not. So what's stopping the Colts from competing from winning the division in the AFC South? And yes, I do feel like the future's bright in Indianapolis. And remember, if you're out there and you want your comment to be read, you have to use the hashtag LouieTLive. All right? I'm not going to read random comments. If you want your comment read, got to use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. Let's see. Azad Bilal says, do you think Russell Wilson has surpassed Mahomes in the MVP race after a poor performance? I'd say right now, Mahomes is still in the discussion. Obviously, it's so early. I really don't like having MVP discussions after the quarter poll. But to me, it's Russell Wilson, it's Christian McCaffrey, it's Mahomes. I mean, those are, to me, your three guys that are front runners right now. But there's so much time left to go in the season. I think Mahomes is still in the discussion, but for me right now, Russell Wilson and Christian McCaffrey are just ridiculous right now, and I think those are the two guys leading the charge right now. Reese says, even in this QB-driven league, it just goes to show at the end of the day, you need to have a balanced offensive attack to prosper. You got to be able to run the football. We saw the Packers not be able to run it last week against Philadelphia. They weren't able to get in from the 1 yard line. Instead, they elected to throw it 4 straight times and were denied. You got to be able to run the football. They ran it against the Cowboys today, and look what it was able to get them. I mean, you got to be able to run the football in this league to some degree. I'm not saying you got to be tearing it up on the ground and rushing for $150 every single week, but you do have to have the threat of the run game. The teams need to respect your ability to run the football. If they don't, then they can just tee off on the pass. And so I think there's something to be said about being balanced and having the ability to run. The thing that has made the Patriots so successful over the last decade plus, is their ability to run the football and throw it. So we always laud and praise the Patriots for, the way that they do things. And one of the best things that they do is they structure their game plan each specific week for the team that they're playing. And if you're great against the run, they say, to hell with the run this week. We're just going to throw it. All right. If you're great against the pass, but you have trouble stopping the run, they say, to hell with the pass. We're going to run it 40 times this week. They're not afraid to be essentially a chameleon and adapt to the situation that they're placed into. But it's the ability to be able to do both. If they need to run it this week, they can. If they need to throw it this week, they can. That's what makes the Patriots so hard to stop. And teams that are one-dimensional, you can take something away. You know what I mean? And so, again, being able to run the football gives you the ability to be multifaceted because just about every team in the league can throw it. All right. In this league and the way it's set up, just about everybody can throw it, but not everybody can run it. And that's one of those distinctions in this league. If you can't run the football, you're going to find it tough to be consistent. Yep, you may have a high output one week or the next week, but eventually teams are going to slow your passing attack down. Can you run it? And we've seen teams struggle this year when they can't run and then teams start to slow down their passing attack. JP says, you think the Falcons will fire Dan Quinn after losing to Houston today? He's getting closer to being canned. His seat is getting really hot. It's amazing. Everyone assumes Jay Gruden's going to be the first coach fired this season. I'm looking at Dan Quinn and saying, bruh, your seat is getting really hot over there, man. I can see Dan Quinn getting fired tomorrow. Like, it's that bad in Atlanta. And to me, they've been the most disappointing team this season. No one expected after 5 weeks of football the Atlanta Falcons to be 1-4. And to be honest, they're a Julio Jones wide receiver screen on 4th and 5 with a Mohamed Sanu check 1-2-1-2. Guess who? Mohamed Sanu blocking the back away from being 0-5 right now. I mean, literally, they could be winless along with the Cincinnati Bengals, Miami Dolphins, Jets, and Redskins. Like, they could be right there in the midst of that funk with all those stinking ass teams. They haven't played much better. That's for damn sure after giving up 50 today. JP says, do you think Adam Gase and Vic Fangio will both be one and done with the Jets and Broncos respectively? No, I don't. JP also says, Mahomes definitely looked human these past couple of weeks. He's still really good, man. I mean, I thought last week he was exceptional despite not throwing for a touchdown pass. I thought he was the difference in that game. He was outstanding. So this week, though, I thought that, him being slowed by the injury. And remember, he was already hobbled before this. He was dealing with some injuries already. I think going back to the Ravens game, he's been a little slowed and hampered by some injuries. But he's always been able to gut it out, tough it up. So this is a guy that, to me, has shouldered the burden of being the guy in Kansas City since day one. When he came in, they were looking for him to be the anti-Alex Smith, and he has. And so sometimes you can fall into that trap of saying, hey, Pat got us. No matter what, if we need it, Mahomes could throw for 425 today, but you got to be able to run it. And I thought Andy got away from that a little bit today, and I think he'll get back to that. They'll get back to running the football. It's a little bit tougher when your offensive line is kind of in tatters and in shambles the way that the Chiefs are right now, but they'll figure it out. I got confidence in Andy Reid's ability to do that. The Black Al B says, this game was a Mike Zimmer wet dream. LOL. Hashtag run the ball. Mike Zimmer's stubbornness and his inability to adapt to the modern NFL has scared away offensive coordinator after offensive coordinator. Um, that's hilarious hearing that from my man Blackout B. Um, anyway, Footstep says, thanks for saying McCaffrey is in the MVP conversation. He carries our Panthers offense on both his back and feet. Hope to God he doesn't get hurt. If anything happens to McCaffrey, the Panthers go from a true NFC South contender to bottom feeders in that division. Like, he's that important to that offense. Without Christian McCaffrey, the Panthers stand no chance. And it's amazing because just 3 weeks ago we were saying, well, the Panthers can only go as far as Cam Newton takes them. That whole narrative has switched to, hey, look, they would love to have Cam Newton, but as long as Kyle Allen continues to play solid football and Christian McCaffrey plays out of his damn mind, the Panthers will be just fine. And so I don't know how much longer that's going to last, but if McCaffrey continues to play the way he's been playing, they're as dangerous as anybody in the NFC South. So there's that. Reese says Mike Evans had 0 catches today. Whoa. Still scored 24 points, but that can't happen. That should never happen. He should at least have a bubble screen. Like, I can never understand how an entire game can go and your big play receiver doesn't touch it at least once. You know what I mean? Like on a bubble, on a slant, something easy just to get it in his hands to get him involved in the game. I just never understood that. Let's see. Anyway, Reese says, like you said, Lou, being one-dimensional will kill you. The Bucs are a great rushing defense. We can't stop a parked car against the pass. You sound like my buddy that loves the Bucs. JP says, the thing that surprises me about Mahomes this year is that he hasn't really connected on the deep ball too much. Got to make use of that rocket launcher of an arm. He actually has connected on the deep ball. That's been the issue, is when he hasn't, the offense hasn't been as dynamic. But you go to the first week of the season, it was a lot of underneath stuff that just went for big plays because of broken, busted coverages or broken tackles against the Jags. Then you look at the Raiders game, he was launching them deep all game long. They couldn't stop him in the second quarter of that game. It literally was one quarter. They didn't score another point in that game. All 28 of their points in that game came in the second quarter, but they were a bunch of deep balls. I think it was a string of like 6 plays of 30 yards or more in a row for the Chiefs in that ball game. You look at last week against the Lions, it was big plays galore in that football game. It was ridiculous. It was like a track meet. Both teams were moving the football up and down the field. But this week, it was polar opposite. There weren't any big plays to be had, and I think that's part of the reason that they were kind of bogged down on offense. And I talked about that a little bit earlier. JP also says, you think Cam Newton will be the next quarterback to retire early like Andrew Luck did? I don't know. I really don't know. I know this much. Cam Newton isn't going to quit football. He loves the game of football. The question is, will his body break down on him and him not be able to do the things that he needs to be able to do to succeed? If Cam can't use his legs, he's not the same quarterback. And so that's the real question is, will his shoulder ever heal to the point where he can throw it the way he wants? Will his body, and I think this time off right now during the season, it's big, and I think that's why he said, and the organization has said, look, Cam said, I'm not coming back till I'm 100%. Because now there's this narrative out there that this guy's washed, and he's a bum, and he's this, and he's that. And he's been playing through injuries, and that's what people don't realize, and they fail to give him credit for, is this guy's been gutting it out through these injuries, and they've been piling on him, and all he's ever done is try to give his team the best chance to win, because he knew he needed to be out there for his team to have a chance. Now they've got a quarterback that gives them an opportunity, that allows him to heal up. I want to see him get healthy because I think there's still good football left in Cam Newton. But anyway, KT, the Southern gent, says, has the league figured out Mahomes? Also, sorry for doubting you on can't guard Mike. We already had that discussion on Michael Thomas. You've already said, hey, man, I was wrong. We don't have to rehash that. You know that this dude's a beast. He had another ridiculous game today. There's no need to rehash that. the league hasn't figured out anything on Patrick Mahomes. Coming into the game, the man had 10 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he became the fastest quarterback to throw for 6,000 yards. I mean, literally, the man just played in his 20th game last week, and he's already amassed over 60 touchdown passes in his career already, which is insane. Like, what he's doing is putting up cartoonish numbers. The league hasn't figured out a damn thing. You can't figure out what this man does. You saw the touchdown pass tonight. There's no figuring out anything for that. There's no defending that. Like, you can't figure out off schedule, making two dudes miss, extending, and then throwing off a 1 foot 35 yards down the field on a rope, on a frozen rope. There's no figuring that out. That's what he has. You can't defend that. You can't teach that. It's just different. Period. We've never seen anything like that before. You could talk about Brett Favre. You could talk about John Elway. And there's been Steve Young. They've been some talented quarterbacks that can move and extend plays. Michael Vick. But we haven't seen the combination of the ability to extend, the ability to throw off of different launch angles, off 1 foot, with the type of accuracy and still not turn it over, okay? You've had guys be able to do some of the things Mahomes has done, but not all in one body and not turn it over. Before Mahomes, it was Aaron Rodgers. Like, man, Aaron Rodgers' ability, and I still think Aaron Rodgers, for me, pound for pound, still the best guy throwing the football on the move with accuracy. His spirals on the move are stupid, and they're tight, and they're precise. But Mahomes, it's a different level of extending. Like, Aaron Rodgers isn't juking three dudes and extending a play, running backwards and throwing a touchdown pass. Like, Aaron Rodgers may elude, step up, slide, and then roll to his right and then throw a bullet. But Mahomes is running backwards 10 yards, then 10 yards to the left, and then throwing it across his body 50 yards down the field in stride for a touchdown. Like, that's dumb. We've never seen that before. Let's see. And JP says, Vikings defense really brought Daniel Jones down to earth today with 4 or 5 sacks. Daniel Jones is solid, but no one ever said that this guy was a Hall of Famer already. Like, I think that was the thing that everybody kind of got caught up in. That's not a good Giants roster. Like, that's not a good team around him. So he's got to do more. I think he's fine. And yes, it wasn't a great day for him. It wasn't a great day for him last week versus the Redskins. Like, he since his first start against Tampa, he's kind of steadily declined, but that team around him isn't very good anyway. So it is what it is. KT the Southern Gent says, did Andy Reid get out-coached tonight? To a degree, yes. Yes, he did to a degree, but also there's a lot of injuries with the Chiefs. I hate to make excuses. Everybody's dealing with injuries. The Colts had like 3 healthy cornerbacks going into the game tonight. I don't like using the injury excuse because everybody's dealing with injuries. Some teams more so than others, but they're really banged up. It's tough when you're going to the next man up theory with the next man to the next man. Like, after a while, you run out of guys that you really feel like can come in and actually keep the ball rolling and keep the train going. Like, they're dealing with a ton of injuries, and it's starting to affect them on the field. And then they had a ton of penalties, and that's the great equalizer. Turnovers and penalties are the great equalizer. I don't care how good you are. The Chiefs are one of those teams that can overcome penalties normally, but you don't want to keep having penalties and pushing yourself back. How many times were they 3rd and 17, 3rd and 28? Like, they were in some really long and damn near impossible down and distances tonight. You can't win like that in this league. So that doesn't help you either, especially when you're already not running the football. So it was a rough night, to say the least, for them. Storm says that the AFC West has been surprising outside of Kansas City. It has been. The Broncos, you remember, I was high on the Broncos. They should be 3-2 right now. The league did a number on them with the 2 roughing the passer penalties. They got to get stops at the end. You say what you want about the roughing the passer penalties, but they still gave up a 22-yard pass to the Bears to set up field goal range after the penalty was called. The same thing with the Jacksonville game. They had opportunities to get stops there, and they just didn't. But they won today. And I told you I thought the Chargers were an 8-8 ball club, and everybody said I was crazy. I don't think the Chargers are going to be very good this year. I told you that already, and it's starting to come to fruition. Still a lot of football left to be played, but I'm not high on the Los Angeles Chargers this year. So there is that. In any event, Mo L says, is there any chance Haskins plays next week? I don't know. It's hard to really say. And Rodney Ray says, look at my boy Jacoby. Happy to see him get another dub. I am as well. So that's going to do it for Chiefs home hosting the Colts on Sunday Night Football. A surprise. Surprise! Didn't see this one coming. Most of you didn't as well. The Colts storm in to Kansas City on a Sunday night and storm out with a 19-13 victory. Get to 3-2 on the season with the win. Meanwhile, the Chiefs suffer their first defeat of the season. They're now 4-1. They got to lick their wounds. They got a lot of injuries. We'll see what happens with the Chiefs moving forward, but it's a bitter pill to swallow if you're the Chiefs in this football game because you had opportunities. You had chances, but man, to only score 13, this is an offense. When's the last time the Chiefs didn't score north of 20? I can't remember. This is the first time that they haven't scored above 20. And I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting a game in which they didn't score a bunch of points. But with Mahomes under center, I'd like to think this is the first time they didn't crack 20 points. I'm probably wrong. But I can't remember a game in which they didn't score north of 20. They didn't even score north of 14 in this game. They had one touchdown. When's the last time Mahomes played in a game that didn't produce multiple touchdown scores by the Chiefs? I don't know. Stop asking. That's crazy. So credit the Colts defensively for getting that done. Credit the Colts for being able to run the football and take the air out of the rock in this football game and really ground and grind that Colts or that Chiefs offense to a halt in this game. Really impressive stuff. Remember, tomorrow, 7 p.m., Rep Your Squad makes its debut. You want to talk about your team? The floor is open. Looking forward to chopping it up, talking about all the games in Week 5 and talking about all your teams and what I've seen from them as we'll have that platform open. So make sure you tell a friend that tells a friend that tells a friend. Join me, your man, Louie T, here for Rep Your Squad tomorrow, 7 p.m., Mondays, moving forward, rest of the season. Rep Your Squad. Looking forward to doing that tomorrow. If it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. I thank you guys for joining me once again. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so. And oh, by the way, wow, the Indianapolis Colts go into Kansas City and win 19-13. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your night.